I'm going to be uninstalling this GE reverse osmosis and installing this Waterdrop G2 tankless water system and making some comparisons kind of as we go along with the install here. First off, if you need any more information about either one of these products, I got some links in the description. You can go and try to find out more specs if you need them and that kind of stuff, or where to buy them or whatever. GE runs about $200. Waterdrop's about $300. Cost difference, I think, is justifiable from the fact that GE wastes about 3 gallons plus to every 1 gallon of filtered water. Waterdrop's like 1 to 1. Filter replacements, Waterdrop I think might be a little bit cheaper depending on where you get them from, but they're kind of the same. G2 has 2 filters, GE has 3. The faucet itself, you can tell by handling this thing, it's very well made. There's no air gap in the G2, which I like. The stem part has 3 O-rings as far as, water leak protection. I guess that's good. GE, you could tell by handling it, it's a lot cheaper made, a lot more plastic and that kind of stuff. The hoses are hooked to the faucet base, I guess, which is good. There's only 2 rings on the faucet stem. I don't know if it's a deal breaker, but it's a deal breaker for me. The air gap, notoriously noisy, gurgly. They clog, they leak onto your countertop if you're not careful. I just don't like them. Only drawback to the Waterdrop G2 might be that you need an outlet. It does have a little pump inside. That's why it's tankless. So you need an outlet under your sink. Filters, there's only 2 of these. They're somewhat oversized looking compared to the GE. There is only two filters you need to replace, which the unit has a display that will tell you when to replace that's the pre-filtered there, and then that's the reverse osmosis filtered there. And like I said, the unit has displays on the front. It'll tell you when they need replaced, which is not that often, I don't believe. Once a year, once every 2 years possibly. I think it goes by usage. Under the sink, the old GE, you can tell how much room that takes up, which is not much. It doesn't take up much room, so just a mental note as we go dismantling this thing. Water is shut off, pressure off the tank. A little bit of residual water. Keep a towel handy for that. Taking this thing apart's pretty simple. I use a wrench, adjust it to the size of the hose, and then you just push on that retainer clip thing, push down on that, and pull your hose out. I'm just going to let this thing drain here for a while. The GE, the pressure on this thing is next to nothing. It just dribbles out of the faucet. I've tried everything to adjust the pressure, and I just don't like it. I think it's junk. So unhooking the old water supply to the old GE, it was 1/4 inch. So I'm going to save this fitting in the nut there. I'm going to save that. It's a brand new fitting, so I might be able to use that somewhere. Outlet, I already have that installed. I put a GFI on this under the sink, and it's above the tank, kind of out of water's way. I don't want anything leaking on that. I'm going to jump to the faucet part, which is probably one of the hardest things to do. So I'm going to mock it up on top of the sink here, so you can see the faucet base on top, and then that black plastic like washer, and then a nut to hold it on from underneath. And then once that's all tight, you have a little coupling here. It doesn't matter which way that goes, as long as you have it on there tight all the way in. And you can pull back on it just a fuzz to expose a little gap there. They give you these little clips, so you don't accidentally unhook one of these fittings, which I think is going to be pretty hard to do. But they do give you extra in case they get away from you like that. But those just snap on. Kind of a nice little safety feature as far as that goes. And then I'm going to jump to the water adapter that they send with it, which is really nice. It's adjustable for either 3/8 or 1/2 inch, depending on what you have under your sink. Very versatile, very well made little adapter here. It's really nice. The supply line to the unit is already hooked up. It does have its own little ball valve there to shut the water on and off just to the unit. 3/8 on the top or 1/2 inch, whichever one you need. On the top, I'm be using the 3/8, and also on the bottom is the same thing. You have either 3/8 or 1/2 inch. You will need a little bit of Teflon tape on a couple of these fittings. Excuse me. And they do send that too, and plenty of it. They send you 2 of those little things. Unhooking the water supply to the faucet, pretty straightforward. Just, watch out for residual water and tuck that out of the way so I can get the rest of this fitting off of my shutoff valve, which is 3/8 on the top. So I'm putting the nut on the bottom. It does have a washer in there. So what I'm going to do is just snug it up to the shutoff and move on to something else real quick before I hook up the rest of that. And like I said, they do have rubber washers in them, so snug them up tight, but you don't have to crank on them. I got the Teflon tape on the top of that fitting, which it needs on both top and bottom. And I'm going to move on to the supply hose for the faucet, because while I can get to it here, pushed on my coupling with my little clips, and I'm just going to leave this hose hang for now and move on to the drain, which placement of this thing is probably more difficult than actually doing it. So you don't want it anywhere near your discharge for your dishwasher. You don't want crud blowing up in your drain hose for your osmosis. So nowhere near that. If you have a garbage disposal, I wouldn't put it near a garbage disposal or either. I'm going to opt for this little straight piece right here. You can face it forward, backwards, sideways, as long as it's not in your way and you don't put a kink in your hose. Excuse me. 1/4 inch hole, drill bit, drill your hole through the pipe. And then what I did is I just left the drill bit. I stuck the drill bit in the hole to line up that saddle valve part and just slid it over top of my drill bit and then snugged it up. It does have a rubber gasket on it, so you don't need to crank on these either. Nice and snug, good to go. Pull your drill bit out, and then I'll finish with this hooking up this adapter. So I'm going to tighten this down onto the part I already put on, and you do need to snug that up a little bit tighter. Like I said, you don't have to crank, till the end of time on these things. Just snug them up and you're good to go. Same with my supply hose for the sink. Got that hooked back up. And now my drain hose for the RO unit. Just make sure you get it pushed in there all the way and pull back on it a little bit if you need to get to get that little clip on there. So all the hoses are hooked up. Everything's ready to go. I just need to hook up the unit, drain hose and everything. So the unit itself has, just the 3 hose hookups, and it's very well marked. This thing's very well made and very well explained. I mean, they give you everything you need. Here you got the supply in the middle, your faucet on the left, and the wastewater on the opposite side. I set the unit outside the sink base there in case I ever got to pull it out to get into the sink. I want to be able to pull it out without unhooking it. So I'm going to trim these hoses a little bit, give a little bit of slack, not a ton. If you are going to trim your hoses a little bit, I'm doing this because I don't like all that stuff under the sink and the potential for kinking of the pipe. But if you do have to trim those, just make sure you cut them square, nice and square before you put them in. And there again, there's your supply in the middle. That's your water supply. Just make sure they're all the way in. They go in about 3/4 to an inch-ish. Just push it till it won't go any farther. Pull back on it a little bit. Pull back on the hose a little bit if you need to make a little gap for that clip. Like I said, they do give you a few extra of those just in case. Near that red line, that's your wastewater. Get your clip on there, and then the opposite side would be to the faucet, and get that in there. And that's all there is to that. So we're going to hook up the... there's that one, what you call it? I don't know what you call it. The stem for your faucet, I guess. You just push that in until it won't go any farther. And that's all you got to do for that. So we'll go ahead and turn the water on. Check for drips. I'm going to turn the water on, the main water, to the faucet first. Just look and see if it's leaking or dripping or anything. And then I'll turn the water on to the G2 unit itself. Just open that all the way up, and then check for some drips there at the fittings, and then check on the unit, possibly just take a peek. And then plug it in. After you get the water turned on, then plug it in. It'll start to run, and that left filter light will start to blink. Just looking for leaks again, drips while it's running. You want to do that while it's pressurizing. And then they tell you to open up the faucet after you turn the water on and plug it in. Then open up the faucet, and you'll hear a bunch of air come out. And then the water will start pumping immediately. It doesn't have to build pressure or anything because it's as needed. So they tell you to let that run for a half hour, mostly to flush the air and flush the filters from the factory. It'll run for about a half an hour, roughly, and that light will blink. And when that light stops blinking and it's a solid blue, then you're done. You can shut the faucet off. The pump on this thing does make a little bit of noise, but it's not near as aggravating as that air gap faucet gurgling. So make sure you don't have any kinks or any leaks or anything like that. And then, like I said, it's on demand. So that is a solid blue. I can shut this off, and it's ready to go. The filter light will come on only when you're using water. Otherwise, it'll be off. And then that display will tell you when to change your filters, which, like I said, I don't believe it's very often. You need to change those once a year or once every 2 years. So definitely G2 all the way for me. Hope that helps.